Around 2 weeks ago, I released back-to-back theory videos where I dive deep into Yuji and Sukuna's curse techniques. And I swear to God, the moment I published each video, I felt like I got hit by an infinite void. It's like when you leave the exam hall and suddenly all of the correct answers start flooding your mind. While I was making those videos, I thought I was cooking and that Itadori's true nature and curse technique were so obvious. But then Gege had to go and release chapter 253. And with that chapter came an endless spiral of overthinking more theories and realizing that, even though I was close, those Yuji and Sukuna theories have even more room for improvement. I was slightly nervous about making this video because I thought it would look like I'm just after views, but then I remembered that I don't give a f what you think, and I do this because I'm just a massive nerdy conspiracy nut, so if Yuji's curse technique is what I want to talk about, then that's what I'm going to talk about. I love you guys though, please like and subscribe and all that YouTubey shit, you know? Anyway, without further ado, allow me to take you through what I think is the final form of my ever-evolving Yuji Sukuna theory. Naturally, each time I dropped what I thought was a banger theory, Gege instantly releases a chapter proving me wrong. Except Sukuna's Black Flash, that was just petty Gege, there was really no need. I previously discussed how Yuji was able to suppress Sukuna due to them being blood relatives and sharing a soul trait, giving them the awareness and control over their own souls. But then Gege revealed that Sukuna also only gained awareness of the soul after sharing a body with Itadori, so that idea kind of went down the drain pretty quickly. I also do not understand how you can literally split your soul into a 20-piece McFinger meal and not be aware of your own soul. But honestly, I'm just going to choose to ignore that before I actually lose my mind. Due to the inherited soul trait idea being disproven, I was pretty lost for ideas on how Kenjaku created Yuji to be the perfect vessel, until that question was potentially answered by Sukuna himself. As we know, Maki Zenin has a heavenly restriction limiting her cursed energy to 0 but perfecting her body. Now, I believe heavenly restrictions are not absolute, but actually more of a spectrum, since on the other side of that spectrum we have Kokichi Muta, aka Mekamaru. Mekamaru gained massive cursed energy which he can control over long distances, but his body looks like it would disintegrate if you so much as look in his direction. Before Maki's awakening, she was being held back by her twin sister Mai, who had very little cursed energy. Jujutsu treats twins as one entity, hence why Maki wasn't like Toji despite individually having 0 cursed energy. That little cursed energy Mai had was also interpreted as Maki's because of the whole twins thing. But even then she still had incredible strength. Not the same level as now, but it definitely was there. This supports the idea of heavenly restriction being a spectrum, where awakened Maki is one extreme, but the unawakened Maki is somewhere in between. Due to Sukuna calling Yuji a half-assed brat, it's my belief that Yuji Itadori had a heavenly restriction imposed on him in the same way by Kenjaku, giving him his enhanced body, but very little, not 0, but very little curse energy. And yeah, I'm sure you have a lot of questions about how I managed to come to this conclusion and how it makes any sense at all, especially since we know that Yuji does in fact have a fair bit of cursed energy. Well, I'm gonna answer them all, so don't run off to the comments just yet. As it always does in Jujutsu Kaisen, everything ties straight back to the soul. Although no concrete information has ever been given about the soul, it's a very heavily suggested idea that the body and soul are connected in such a way that altering the soul affects the body. Mahito's idol transfiguration is a very good example of this, as is Sukuna saying that reverse curse technique can be adapted to heal the soul once you become aware of it. It's also clear that heavenly restrictors like Toji and Maki perhaps work a little bit differently than regular sorcerers when talking about the rules of the soul. Despite Granny only channeling the body, Toji's special body actually won against a sorcerer's soul, possibly because the body and the soul are bound together and neither actually comes first. Whether this is how it works in general is actually still very unclear, but I think it's a safe conclusion to draw for heavenly restrictors. Maki is also only able to wield the soul split katana because she can actually perceive the soul. What I'm getting at here is that using a heavenly restriction to strengthen and perfect the body would also strengthen and perfect the soul. Yuji has been acknowledged by Sukuna as having an unbreakable soul, and he was also called a half-assed version of Maki, suggesting that Yuji does have a somewhat half-assed or incomplete heavenly restriction. It would explain his enhanced strength, speed, and reaction time, as well as why he has a soul capable of suppressing Ryomen Sukuna. Now, there is one obvious issue with this idea that I really need to clear up. If Yuji has this heavenly restriction, then how does he seem to have a pretty high level of cursed energy? Well, the answer is very obvious, and it just goes to show the genius behind Kenjaku's crazy-ass experiments. Yuji Itadori has cheated the system and gained both a heavenly restrictor's body and a sorcerer's cursed energy. Yuji has been stated many times now to be a sort of cursed object which has been soaked in Sukuna's own cursed energy. Before becoming Sukuna's vessel, he showed absolutely no signs of having a lot of cursed energy at all. We do know that he had some though, since he did see the curse in the school, and if he had absolutely 0, he would not be able to see the curse in any capacity regardless of how threatened his life is. But even if we take it all back to basics, it's actually pretty clear that Yuji could have had a very unusually small amount of cursed energy. Despite his his grandfather's condition and not having parents, he was a very happy and positive kid. This may be more symbolic than literal, but it does suggest the absence of negative energy. It's also blatantly obvious that he just gains more and more cursed energy the longer he held onto Sukuna. So I conclude that Kenjaku influenced the placement of a half-assed heavenly restriction to strengthen his body and soul in order to hold Sukuna. Yuji would then maintain the benefits of a heavenly restrictor and then gain the strongest sorcerer's cursed energy on top of that, making him the perfect balance between the two types of power. As Gojo said, Sukuna's curse technique would also engrave itself into Yuji, allowing him to use it at some point in the future. Everyone is eagerly awaiting Yuji's use of Sukuna's curse technique, but we're going to wait a little bit longer to discuss that. With access to immense cursed energy taken from Sukuna, Yuji can further enhance himself to make up for his half-assed heavenly restriction. In short, Yuji's true potential is to be both a heavenly restrictor with enhanced physical prowess, but also a cursed energy demon capable of cursed techniques. Now, if you need any convincing that it is possible to regain what was lost when imposing a heavenly restriction, then look no further than Kokichi Muta, aka Mekamaru. His incredibly feeble body was repaired by Mahito's idol transfiguration, yet he maintained his immense cursed energy output, showing that it is possible to have both. The physical evidence provided by Gege isn't the only thing that supports this idea though, since the level of symbolism is just crazy. Honestly, hold tight because we are about to cook, okay? Sukuna represents the pinnacle of Jujutsu, the peak of cursed energy as even acknowledged by Kenjaku. Sukuna is currently fighting Maki, the peak of heavenly restriction, which rejects Jujutsu. Sukuna also claims that this fight holds a lot of weight since it will determine which side is truly worth perfecting. With Yuji Itadori having a heavenly restriction similar to Maki and Jujutsu similar to Sukuna, he truly embodies the definition of the honored one. Every single person to ever touch Jujutsu Kaisen has heard the phrase throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one. Well, the concept of heaven and earth is very commonly depicted as yin and yang, the literal symbol of balance. From what I can tell, in Japan this is also shown as a flying dragon surrounding a tiger on the ground. In their fight, Sukuna referred to Gojo's infinity as scales that he was going to remove, and Sukuna's chant for the world-dividing dismantle also includes the phrase scale of the dragon. Gojo, now very much being in heaven himself, could literally represent the dragon in that balance. Or you can even say that the dragon represents Jujutsu entirely. And opposite to heaven, you then have earth, or the tiger. Now, if you want to go really deep, we could say that before discovering Jujutsu and gaining Sukuna's cursed energy, Yuji was nicknamed the Tiger of West Junior High. But overall, the point is just that the tiger could represent heavenly restriction, the opposite of Jujutsu. With Yuji now having the best of both worlds, he truly would be able to say throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one, because he sits right in the balance of both heavenly restriction and Jujutsu. Now, I want you all to look straight at the screen with a straight face and tell me that that isn't just perfect. Obviously, Yuji's heavenly restriction is inferior to Maki's, who represents the pinnacle of heavenly restriction. Yuji is also inferior to Sukuna in pure Jujutsu due to Sukuna being the absolute pinnacle of his field as well. However, being able to perfectly balance both of them means that when he truly taps into his potential, he will be the absolute, undeniable strongest in history, even surpassing Satoru Gojo and Ryomen Sukuna. Oh, and don't be mistaken, that whole heavenly restriction discussion was just the starter. We better cook so hard with yet another revision of my Sukuna curse technique theory, so lock the in. Also, I know I keep changing and adding to this theory, but that's the beauty of being the strongest nerd in history. Every time I think of or read something new, I feel a burning need to make a video on it, or else I will only sink deeper into the overthinking madness that is Jujutsu Kaisen. But you guys get content, so it's a win-win anyway, you know? Anyway, as discussed, Yuji will supposedly have Sukuna's true curse technique, which means that we've got to assess everything we have seen from both Yuji and Sukuna to get the best idea of what the shrine curse technique really is. One of Sukuna's key themes is eating and devouring whenever he wants, which can be interpreted both literally and symbolically. For this theory though, we are actually going to use a little bit of both. Now, I am definitely not alone in thinking that Sukuna tolerates Urame because they are his personal chef. I genuinely really like this idea, so I am going to fully lean into it here. In order to gain total control over Megami and fully suppress his soul, Sukuna asked Urame to prepare him a special bath. Based off their limited interactions up until the point of him asking for the bath, and how well prepared Urame was for it, I believe this is not the first time that the pair have actually utilized it. Basically, Urame uses their technique to freeze and juice cursed spirits until a bath of dark cursed liquid forms. This ritual was supposedly utilized in the Heian era to create cursed tools and objects. By bathing in a lovely pool of cursed spirit juices, Sukuna can suppress Megami's soul and gain control over his vessel. My theory is that Sukuna utilized the bath back in the day to turn his opponents into cursed objects for him to literally eat, just the same way that Yuji ate Sukuna's finger. The bath would suppress their souls and allow for Sukuna to gain their cursed energy and cursed technique upon consumption. We know from when Yuji eats Sukuna's cursed object that it actually soaks him in Sukuna's cursed energy energy and allows him to gain some of it, in addition to his curse technique, which will slowly engrave itself into Yuji's body. These are general rules that would be applied if Sukuna was able to do the same by means of suppressing opponents into edible cursed objects in order to gain their cursed energy and cursed technique. This would explain how Sukuna's cursed energy is so high, since he could have just accumulated it via this process of suppressing and consuming all the way through the Heian era. And yes, if I sound like I'm running out of breath at the end of my sentences, it's because I'm talking so damn fast and so much, so give me a fucking break. Okay. Sorry, that was kind of uncalled for.
Anyway.
As we are told by special grade sorcerer Yuki Tsukumo, a sorcerer capable of collecting cursed techniques like Kenjaku only has the brain capacity to hold a small number, unlike Yuta Okotsu, who has an actual receptacle to hold his copy techniques for him. Now for Sukuna, I believe that his curse technique Shrine is actually his receptacle for curse techniques that he collects. With Shrine storing the collected techniques of suppressed souls, he probably only has one technique actually occupying the black box of his brain, and that technique is most likely Dismantle and Cleave, since that's the one we always see him use without needing any kind of Fuga chant. By performing the Fuga open chant, he can probably switch out the primary technique that is occupying his brain. Now I'm aware Sukuna could have just done this because Maharaga was unaffected by Cleave, but Malevolent Shrine's bombardment of slashes stopped the moment that Sukuna chanted Fuga and whipped out fire, suggesting that he actually swapped out the techniques that was occupying his brain. It's also entirely possible that Dismantle and Cleave are simply an application of the Shrine technique, since they do kind of symbolize kitchen knives and cooking. Now I personally really like the idea of Shrine engraving collected techniques into his soul, which are represented via his black tattoos. With the tattoos being etched into his soul, it would explain why they appear when he actually takes over a body, but no other physical trait of his does. Anyway, the point is that Shrine is a curse technique which allows the collection of other curse techniques and other sorcerers' cursed energy, which are gained via devouring sorcerers that he has suppressed into cursed objects via the bath. Make sense? Good. Now the bath was also a commonly known method of creating cursed tools, which might explain why Sukuna said a cursed spirit like Jogo wouldn't know about it, since the bath would likely have no effect on a cursed spirit whatsoever, since it would effectively be bathing in just more of itself. There is also some crazy symbolism concerning Sukuna's innate domain that really just needs to be talked about here, and it very much does support this idea. Sukuna's innate domain is shown as a pile of ram skulls in the middle of a giant Founder Titan-esque ribcage with a floor of shallow red water. Now this can very easily represent Sukuna sitting on all of the souls of those he has devoured in order to become the king of curses, since the space it's actually in does look like a kind of stomach. But you can go even deeper into this by researching the spiritual significance of a ram and a ram skull. Rams represent strength, imagination, inspiration, creative problem solving, and having the energy to achieve your goals. Now tell me that does not perfectly describe Sukuna. He was inspired by Megumi's Ten Shadows ability and used his imagination to devise a very creative method to overcome the problem of Gojo's infinity. And furthermore, he quite literally has the cursed energy to achieve all of his goals. And this idea of achieving your ideals no matter what is something that's become very important with both Yuji and Sukuna very recently. I'm telling you, if Gege is doing this shit deliberately, then that is some incredible writing. Now that I've explained what I think Sukuna's abilities are, it's time to apply them to Yuji Itadori. Yuji now has a load of cursed energy from being soaked in Sukuna's for so long. He also has awareness of the soul, which he can utilize via methods likely explained by Yuki's soul research book. Not to mention that he has very quickly picked up on techniques like reverse curse technique. During the training month, Yuji also ate and utilized the blood manipulation technique of all remaining curse womb death things. Assuming that Yuji does actually have access to this shrine technique, blood manipulation is probably the main technique selected right now, since that's what he's been using in his fight against Sukuna. This also means that Yuji's soul stuff is not an actual curse technique, rather something he can learn just through having awareness of his soul. As I have talked about before, Yuji probably has no need to consume in order to add techniques to his shrine, which is what makes him different to Sukuna. Due to him being the son of Kenjaku, he probably has the ability to soul swap as an alternate method, although this may mean that he only gains the technique of those he swaps with and not all of their cursed energy, since he wouldn't really be soaked in it the same way that someone who consumed a cursed object would. So for all we know, Yuji could have a huge range of valuable techniques stored up from our month of training. And it is this very thing that leads me to strongly believe that not going all out is a huge mistake on Sukuna's part that he will most definitely come to regret. Because I think that the Fuga reveal is coming very, very soon. But not from Sukuna. Think about it. If he wasn't going all out against Gojo, Kashimo, or Yuta, then I see absolutely no reason for him to ever go all out and reveal Fuga, unless Yuji does it first. What an amazing way it would be to finally give us answers by having Yuji Itadori reveal Sukuna's technique for him, and then chucking out a straw doll resonance on his severed hand or some shit. Of course, following this amazing reveal and Yujo's arrival on the scene, Sukuna will finally take it up a notch. And to be completely honest with you guys, at this point, all I want is for Arame anime to live long enough to witness their master getting completely shat on. So Hikari, please do not disappoint me, bro. But yeah, that is like the majority of my fully updated Yuji and Sukuna technique theory, which I realize now is just me dumping all of my late night overthinking ideas into a video. But whatever, I enjoy it, hopefully you enjoy it, it should be fine. Although I do genuinely apologize if this one felt a little bit disjointed in certain places, since there was so much I desperately needed to talk about and really struggled to structure it all properly. I also cannot wait for Gege to drop the next chapter and just discredit literally everything I have said. Regardless of how everything turns out in the story though, I am just very grateful to be able to share my thoughts with you guys and give you some entertainment during break week as well, because I know how difficult it can be. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.